and welcome to Aquarian Radio. I'm your host, Jenna. Co-host, Teresa J. Morris has joined me today, and my guest is calling in on or on Skype, and he's supposed to call in on. I can't bring him in. Okay. What do we do? TJ, say hello to everybody while I get my guest on here.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Okay.
Am I supposed to talk now?
Nah, just you're stalling. Okay. Wait a minute, just say hi, Loy. Who are you, TJ Morris?
Hi, everybody. I'm Janet Carol Lesson's co-host tonight from our Alien Contact Organization. We're going to talk about time traveling tonight and the possibility of why some of us think about the future and what we will be doing in the future. So she's recently interviewed somebody about time travel, and I have ERICOP, and that's for Educational Research Association Community Online Press. So you take that and make an acronym for ERICOP. And one of my favorite shows was Time Cop, and going back in time, and we all know about Orson Welles, and we also know about all the people that have always thought, what if I could time travel? So we're researchers, and we provide content on radio shows and our website. So please donate to us. We have a button on our new website, top right, hopefully, to help us stay on the air.
Great. And, so we were recently just looking at what it costs to host all this stuff. I've got to get a new host, a new server. Ooh, everything's going way up. But we've been doing this for free for many years, so we can just keep. We're here to break open all the stories and correct the negative timelines and bring us into a positive universe and, create awareness and ascension for everybody. So TJ and I have been working hard all these years. We've known each other since the early 90s. We had little disconnects here and there where she traveled and I traveled, and then we kept finding each other. So we obviously know each other on a soul level. But we're both here. Now, let me just tell you about the guest and him. He'll be on in a moment. His name is Michael Macintosh. And I first discovered Michael on Apex TV, and Apex TV is an online YouTube. They have several million listeners. I recommend you. It's fun. You have to look at it with a grain of salt. And they interview time travelers, and they must have, 30, 40 interviews of different time travelers who come back, and they tell us about the future. And they said that in 2028 the aliens are coming. My guest keeps calling me on the wrong number.
Yeah,
okay.
We can't hear you when he does that.
No.
It goes blank.
Okay.
You go blank.
Okay, tell people about Time Traveler. I'm going to try one more time to get his. So we're talking about time traveling today. So, TJ, tell our guests what you know about time traveling. Is it real? Is it possible? Do we do it in a secret government? All that stuff.
Okay. Well, it is if you listen to the quasi-crystal effect and how we take 8 points and look at the future with time travel. If you use juxtaposition, supposition, ways to look at the future, and if we decide that we're all going to agree that this is possible in a way that most of us believe in hereafter, afterlife. So many of us believe in karma and I guess you would say what do they call that? Rejuvenation of life after death. Most of us are taught in most all world religions that life does exist after death. So we're looking at, is it possible that if we believe in reincarnation, is that also a form of time travel, just for instance? And on the other hand, we have people that feel like they have this bilocation, is what we're calling it these days, where we can be in two places at one time, thanks to maybe past life memories or future life memories. So it just depends on how each individual thinks. And many of us are getting together in cyberspace in these groups. And you've seen all the technology that's offered to us this day and time. So what we're doing is sharing our ideas and our opinions, and even possibly our own memories in what Tom Campbell may call your package of memory codes in your container when you come here and serve out what we call a body, mind, spirit, sharing the birth, life, death process. So that's what I call it. I call it the ascension age, and we're very open to hearing each individual's way of thinking and becoming, and Janet calls it living and being, and how do you say it? Living, trying is not trying.
Trying is lying. Living.
Yeah.
We're here to experience our third-dimensional physicality. You know what? He says he doesn't have a phone. So I see that Ahmad is live. Is he doing another show right now? Maybe he can pull him into our show.
Yeah, he could pull him. He's got a phone number he pays on Skype. So if he knows.
Can you pull...
Hold on, folks. We have this lately with Skype.
Yeah.
So we're going to see if this guy apparently is in a human container in 3D reality, but we're going to try to bring in 5D on our 5G. I've got 5G. I'm very fortunate.
Are you glowing now? I heard that people with 5G are going to die of cancer.
I don't know. A lot of us are still yucky. I know a lot of people are arguing. Everybody seems to be having extra energy about them, a little nervous energy. It seems to be quick to anger. Yeah. I wonder if it's because
they did that at Montauk. They did that in Montauk, New York. They went and they experimented with this machine. They went around the neighborhood, and when they upped the amps like the 5G is, they all started fighting more. And even the dogs and cats started fighting more. You know, the animals fought. People.
We need to look at that because there's a lot of, there's waves all around us. We pick up radio and TV and microwave and phones, so there's something to that when they amp it up, right? But this is supposed to be, 5G is actually lower amperage, but it can do more damage. It can actually be used as in war. So we don't know yet, folks. We're just talking.
You guys are the experiments. They started with you.
Yeah. Do your own research.
So you're over there, a live experiment. Okay, now I'm multiplexing here. This is really hard, trying to get our guest on. But you're over there, and how many people was it? The whole, all of Florida.
Well, I don't know. I haven't done any research on it, Janet. I just know that when I went into MediaCom, which is the big company here, when you live in town, you can get cable. And out when I lived in Kentucky, I had to use Dish Network or Hughes Network, and it was different. It came in on satellite, right? But this is actually cable underground, and it's better when it rains or snows. The only thing, it's a lot better to receive. But we can talk about the whole grid and how these days everything in this reality is dependent on electricity, and that includes AT&T and all the big companies, Verizon, and anybody that has to deal with phone lines are satellites, and we deal with both.
TJ, sorry to interrupt, but can you give me the number of the show, which is good to broadcast? 646.
Yeah.
What was 649
0893.
Okay, the show number. Yeah, okay. I gave that to Matt. Let's see if he can do his magic. He's very magical, and he can help us.
Yeah,
see, we know Matt Taylor Thomas Becker for years, and he's the tech guy. He's over there in Kentucky. No, he's in where's he at? Georgia.
Yeah, he's in Georgia. He's all down here. We got better stuff down here in the South. I don't know why we got 5G first, but we did. So I think it depends if you're close to a big city where they can justify the expense. Because when I lived in Beaver Dam, Kentucky, we couldn't get jack out there in the county. Now, inside Beaver Dam, they could get cable. They had some cable company move in, but you only had to be within, where they laid the cable in the certain city limit. So But, what's that got to do with time travel? Well, it's interesting because right now the guy's in 3D and he can't even get online because he doesn't have a phone. So he's got to go to Skype.
He dropped having a cell phone. He stopped having a cell phone and a hard line, relying only on Skype on his computer. And
so
I think that's where we're going.
Phone?
No, he says he doesn't have a cell phone. No, he doesn't even have a cell phone. I don't know.
Well, how does he survive? How does he get a job? In today's reality, you got to have certain equipment and tools in order to exist in this reality.
Well, he's a musician.
So how's he get his
travels
job?
all over the world singing. I don't know. We'll have to ask him.
That doesn't make
we'll
sense.
say, how do you get your jobs with no cell phone?
Well, we got to have food,
hard for us
clothing,
to wrap
shelter.
our head around. Huh?
Yeah. Food, clothing, and shelter everybody needs. Warmth and love, according to the Venus Project, even if you don't believe in money. But, we still have to have an exchange rate. So is he sing, what do they say, sing for your supper? No offense, but, we got to have money to talk to each other.
I think he was making a decent living as a musician. Some people make it happen.
Well, trying to tell
he might be famous for all I know. I don't know. Here he is. Okay, we'll ask him. let me do an introduction, but I'll.
Sure, you can hear him. Huh?
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome to Mad
Who
first.
is this? Mad? That's the Mad Painter.
Yeah.
Who do we have?
I'm not sure you can be able to hear him.
We won't be able to hear him.
Talk. I'm not sure. I'm having problems with his connection.
Okay.
But you did
Let me hang him up and call him back.
All right.
Alrighty.
Well,
over here.
Just shut him here, but I can't hear him. So I'm going to hang him up and then call him back.
All right. We appreciate it.
We're working on his.
We're working on time travel.
Yeah. So let me give you a little background on Michael Macintosh. He claims to be a time traveler that was part of a top secret experiment in which he got the chance to see the future. Along with the legend to be a time traveler, Michael also says he's going to be a future president of the United States. Now, the rest is about me. He's what I wrote. So I thought it was what he wrote, but I wrote this. Anyway, Michael, from listening to his time travel thing, he said that he's going to be president in 2024. So we're going to interview and ask him how this happens. What happens in the world? Because he's coming from the future. And he's coming back and he's telling us, this is what's going to happen because I've traveled back and forth in the future. See, I get confused because I watched all these shows on Apex TV. And some of these people came back from the future and they say, my real timeline is, 3970, whatever. But there's people from all over the future. There's people from this time that got recruited by the time travel programs, and apparently they're in existence. They have been in existence going back to the 70s or something, or maybe even before. And they're hired to go back and forth. What they claim is that time traveling becomes a vacation. You can take a vacation to the future, and when you arrive there, there's so many tourists coming from our time and in between that it's real common.
How old is this guy? This reality.
He's about probably your children's age, TJ. He's the next
40s?
generation down. In his 40s, he has 2 young children, so he's got like 2 children under the age of 10, a boy and a girl.
Can you guys hear me? Is this working?
Yes, Michael.
Oh,
hi, Michael.
Excellent.
Welcome to the show.
We finally got it to work here.
And Imad, you're more than welcome to be a part of the show too. We have a party going here because we didn't see you, so let me introduce you to everybody. Listeners, this is Michael Macintosh. I'm here with Thomas Becker, a Mad Painter who works with me on Revolution Radio. He's my producer, and he's a wonderful talk show host himself. He's got several shows. And we have Teresa J. Morris. She's my co-host. I've been working with her since 2012, and Teresa's in Florida, and Thomas Becker's in Georgia, and I'm in Maui, Hawaii. So welcome to the
aloha.
show. And
Aloha.
say hi to
Good
Michael,
day.
everybody.
Aloha. How are you all doing?
Well, we
Hi,
all.
Yeah.
We're all here.
Ahmad?
Not sure.
An author and speaker.
I'm here, but I got to step away for a minute.
Okay,
that's
well,
fine.
we appreciate
So
what
we'll
you
get
did.
started.
All right.
So, Michael, we want to know how you did your time traveling. So you're a time traveler. And were you born in this time or in a future timeline? Well, tell us how it worked
I was
for
born. I was born in 1974. At the very end of 1974. So, I first. Yeah, August 27th, 1974, and I was. Yeah, if you're into star signs and all that, you can read into that if you want. But I first encountered time travel via an extraterrestrial encounter. Actually, I was living in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and my family and I went camping in the Canadian Rockies. And I just kind of came out of my tent and looked at the stars at night and saw that there was a craft. I think I've talked a bit about this before. There was a craft in the sky. It was like the size of a city. It was huge, and I just watched it as it took off. It floated there for a while and took off. Then, like a few weeks later, I was at home. I was only 5 years old when this happened, and I was taken out of my bed at night literally through the wall, through the window, by some sort of tractor beam type thing, into a craft, the same type of craft that you hear about in like the Roswell incident. That's a pretty famous Roswell incident. And the same beings, the same type of beings. And they took me on a very extensive, lengthy time travel and space travel journey in one of those craft. And it appeared, it would have appeared to have only taken moments, but it was a very long time. And that was my first experience with time travel. Was not through a government program, but through an extraterrestrial encounter that I had at age 5. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily.
Did you get involved in the government program?
I did. I was the very next year. I was recruited by DARPA via my kindergarten class, where I was teleported from Calgary to El Segundo, California, and then where I met Barack Obama and Andy Bashago that very same day, and indeed my future self, all in the same day. And I was teleported to Mars as part of a experimental program to kind of assess the surface of Mars. There's a declassified CIA document now that talks about remote viewing on the surface of Mars. I was 6 years old and part of making that document, along with Barack Obama. And they sent me back down to Earth. That was, I think, 1981. I would have been 6. So, yeah, like 81, early 81.
Do you have a copy of that classified that document that you could send it to me, and I'll put that the link?
I do. It's if you go, I don't know if you want to just Google search it. It's at the very top of Google. If you just Google CIA remote viewing Mars, it's actually on the CIA website.
Okay, I'll look right now. CIA remote viewing Mars. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you met you met Andrew Bashago and Barack Obama. So they were in the jump room program at El Segundo. And how old were they? Yeah.
In 1981, and I met, and at the very, to me, the most interesting thing was, in retrospect, I suppose, I met my future self, which is kind of weird, I didn't realize that I was meeting myself because I don't look like I did when I was 6 years old. I look like obviously a totally different person, but after going through this program and then having my memory suppressed, I somehow later on encountered Andy Bashago again, just a few years ago. Well, we came in contact. I think that he's. Yeah, and he reminded me of what I had been through because my memory had been suppressed, and I suffered from very serious depression for like 30-something years because I couldn't remember any of this stuff. But I started to remember after meeting Andy, or coming in contact with Andy. I didn't actually meet him in person. We just came in contact and communicated via the internet, as we're doing right now.
On Facebook, on Skype, or how did you meet him? Because he's very hard to get in contact with.
Yeah. Well, we had some lengthy. Yeah. Well, we had some very lengthy Skype discussions and Facebook and whatnot, and I think he helped me to remember basically what it was that I had been part of, and helped me to formulate the logical conclusion that I'm probably going to be president of the United States in 2024. I don't really want the job, but it seems like that's what I'm being kind of set up for. And
so what makes
frankly
you think
also
that? How do we get to that conclusion? Yeah, how do we get to that outlook, that perspective?
Well, you're talking about I was part of a program on when I was 6 where 2 other people involved in it, one ended up being president and one has aspirations of becoming president. And I know that he will actually because of other time travel, my previous time travel experience.
2016. Andy was going to be president in 2016.
No, he didn't do that because he had lost his eyesight. So now he's coming back, and so that must be a different timeline or something. But go ahead. Yeah, tell your story.
Andy's going to be.
Let's let him talk for a while, and then we'll ask questions. Okay, TJ. So just let him talk. Go ahead.
Well, because of my time travel experience when I was 5 that I talked about just now, I was able to ascertain that we already know who the future presidents are. I indeed know that I will probably be president, having gone forward and looked back at the history record of the future. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yeah.
I already know who the next several presidents will be, and so I'm not alone in this. It's sort of well established at this point that, like, George W. Bush knew he would be president. George H.W. Bush knew, possibly Bill Clinton, Obama himself, and possibly even Donald Trump knew that he would be president in advance because of access to time travel technology. And if that is going to be the case, the logical conclusion to me would be that I would be president in 2024 because of the present conditions that we see in the world and the expertise that I have as an individual would be perfect for the job. And I believe Andy will be president in 2032 until 2040. I know he's going to be very old probably by that point, but he'll be able to handle it. And I'm certainly going to help him get to that point, I think, because, I think he's the perfect person for the job, frankly, at that point in time.
So
and
you'll
indeed,
be from 2024 to what year?
Just 28. I don't want to do 2 terms. There's going to be another president in between us. This is what what I've gathered from time travel. And I mean, I know these things are obviously changeable, but chances are they're kind of predetermined, and certain people are indeed selected for certain things at certain points in time. And it has a lot to do with various factors that I think are of a much higher supernatural nature that we could talk for hours about, but I don't know if we have that kind of time.
Well, we can just go wherever, because we can always do more than one show. Yeah. So feel free to go where you're drawn, because this is an important story that we're fleshing out here. And it's very complicated. So we're probably not going to cover it all in 2 hours, so don't let that one go.
It is a very complicated subject, and it does take it's taken me already years just to kind of get my head around it. And I did study quantum physics and everything. It's kind of it's a field of study of mine, and even so, it can be complicated. Who?
We can't hear you, TJ. Say that last question again.
Robert Mallet, Mallet. Mallet. Is it Robert Mallet?
It does.
What's
quantum physics?
I'm not really one for remembering names of people. I'm not sort of. No, I don't know that name, honestly.
He's a
but I do understand.
Andy talked about him on Project Pegasus.
Okay.
So let's go back to your involvement in Pegasus. So let's flesh that out a little bit. So you were in Pegasus, or you were in a different program?
Well, I don't know that it was necessarily called Project Pegasus back then. I don't think it even the Mars program really even had a name, and that's a name that was ascribed to it afterwards, possibly by other people. I don't know who came up with that name, but
Andy did.
And okay. Well, that's his moniker. That's his moniker for it then. But but
So, Michael, what was your involvement in the program? So you started. Let's go back a little bit to So you met.
It's complicated.
You were 6 years old.
You
were 6 years old. Yeah.
When the first time.
What did they have you do? What did they have you do in the program?
Well,
at 6 years of age?
That was the Mars teleportation thing, where I was teleported to Mars to remote view the surface of Mars and figure out what the past, present, and future of Mars was, and for them to transcribe it and have this information, have access to this information, which that declassified document does. It talks about the sort of ancient history of Mars, that I was able to figure out what Mars used to be like, because I have a sort of a special ability called chronovision. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what that is, but
so you have an ability of chronovision. You're able to chronovise without having a mechanism.
Without technology, yes, it's a mental ability that I have. I didn't realize that was special at all until I realized that very few other people are able to properly do that. But yeah, I can look at, focus on a geographic location and with effort am able to determine and visualize and even see in my mind's eye kind of what the past and the future in any given location will be. I don't know if anyone else here is able to do that, but I am.
I wouldn't have
been in the
process if I couldn't do it. Of course I can.
Okay.
Everybody.
All right. So let's see what. So let's let's see what we. So what did you get? So you were on Mars, and what did you get? And what was the name of that program again? I'm looking at the CIA. Was it Stargate? I'm looking at what I was doing. It was Project Stargate. I'm on the site.
Stargate.
Anyway, you'll have to find the link for me if I can have that here.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to find if you just put in CIA into Google, CIA remote viewing Mars declassified.
Okay.
It comes up to the very top. But
okay.
Yeah,
what did you see on Mars? How far did you go back?
What did I see?
And how far did you go forward? Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think mostly they were asking me to focus on the past. I think that's what the document talks about. They were asking me to focus on like 1 million years BC or something. I think the document mentions that. But it was past, looking specifically into the past, and we were able to find out that there was indeed an advanced civilization on Mars in the past that somehow ended up being destroyed in a cataclysmic event, or probably around the same time that the flood happened here on Earth, the flood of Noah that's mentioned in the Bible, and that there was a cataclysmic event also on Mars around that time, and but there are remnants of that civilization still on Mars today. We figured that out, and there are sort of Martian humanoid beings up there and other life forms, which I encountered personally while I was up there at age 6, and indeed later on when I went back as an older person. I was again on Mars like 2 or 3 years ago now. What is it now? 2019. So you're talking like 2017. I went back in time to. This is it's kind of an infinite loop. I went back in time to like 1975 and points before that, posing as somebody else, posing as a man by the name of Courtney Maurice Hunt, who Andy Bashago thinks is a friend of, old friend of his family. Indeed, that's true.
Right.
But it's an alias. He's in fact me.
So you're Courtney Hunt.
I am, yeah. I know that's kind of hard to kind of wrap your head around, maybe a little bit, but and this was done not with government technology either. This was done with extraterrestrial technology that I have been given access to by them, basically. This has nothing to do with the government. It's higher than the government. The government is kind of frequently used by extraterrestrial beings to kind of help humanity, if that makes any sense. They kind of they have the ability to kind of figure out how to use our government to benefit us.
Okay.
And get the right people into the right places to make sure that things happen that are ultimately beneficial. And so they did that with me numerous times. And I know it sounds crazy, but they're probably going to help me end up becoming president in 2024.
Well, who would they be? Do you live in Canada? Or explain. You grew up in Canada, but you moved to California. So you're a musician in California now? El Segundo?
No,
California?
No, none of that. See, this is what happens when I talk. People take everything out of context and jump
I'm just repeating what you said. Canada to California.
No, you're not repeating what I said. You're taking things out of context.
Yeah, let him tell a story. Yeah, let him go. Go ahead.
I thought he was in Canada and went to California.
No, it doesn't. It's not relevant where he is. I don't know if you want your location known, so we can just leave it private. We don't need to know where you are.
I can't. Yeah, I can't give you my location right now anyway because of what's going on in our government presently. I'm a targeted person because of my involvement in the specifically because of my involvement in the 9/11 Truth Movement. I'm a highly targeted person, and I have to keep my location quiet until the so-called deep state is completely cleaned out because there are people out to kill me. And that's the truth.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So we're not worried about where you're at, and we're just worried about. So I want to just tell you. Let me just tell you. I did find the document. It's a transcript. Is this yours? It's a transcript, like a deposition, and it's. I'm not going to cut and paste it into the website, but I did put the link, and it's from the Central Intelligence Agency, and it says Mars Exploration, May 22nd, 1984. Is that one yours?
That's correct.
Or is that something else?
That is it. Yeah, that's the one. It was transcribed in 1984 from a recording that was made, or a report that was made by Barack Obama of what he could link up to that I was seeing. I was basically like the tool that he used to gather this information, if that makes any sense. Like he himself has parapsychological abilities, and he was able to link up mentally with me to see what I was seeing and to interpret it via a recording device. And it was later transcribed to paper or via typing in 1984. So that's what you're looking at there is the typed out representation of the recording that he made. If you really read it, it's interesting, and read it in his voice. You can. It becomes pretty obvious that it's actually him, like it's his wording, but he's interpreting what he's seeing through somebody else. Can you see that when you read it?
I haven't had a chance to read it, but I'm glancing at it. I will definitely keep it queued up and read it after the show, and I recommend I'm putting it in the show page, listeners, so you can, as soon as I hit publish, I'll hit update, you'll be able to see it. So that's fascinating. Yeah. So how old were you in 1984? Is that 84?
Well, in 80. Well, 84, that was actually, that was just a transcription of something that happened in 1981.
Okay, it's from 81, so they didn't transcribe it till 84. Fascinating. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. So it took them 3 years to get that together, and then it was classified for something like, 35 years or something. It was only recently declassified. So we're starting to see, the gradual.
That they're declassifying it.
Right. Yeah. So we're starting to see the gradual declassification of all of this stuff and the gradual disclosure to the public of everything. And this is another reason that I think I'm going to end up being president, is because that's something that I've been a huge proponent of since for more than half of my life now. I mean, I was one of the first 9/11 truthers. Because I have after high school, I studied construction. I joined the Carpenters Union, the UBCJA, and did a 4-year apprenticeship, which I graduated from, to learn how to build. And, I worked on commercial high-rise construction building jobs in Boston and New York and surrounding areas. And I'm an expert on that subject. And I was able to figure out from a very early point after 9/11 that it was an inside job, and everybody thought I was insane. But we're finding out now that that's absolutely the truth. It was an inside job. There were no planes. It was all staged, and it was a gigantic hoax to get us into a war. And so I've been an advocate of truth in government for a very long time now. At this point, more than half my life, and that's another reason why a lot of people realize, the people who know me anyway, know that that's the kind of person that I am, and I would definitely be the person to absolutely disclose as much of everything as we possibly can to the public, and not just put it out there in a document on the internet, but really make sure that people are getting the information, because you can put it out on the internet and nobody's going to read it, but actually getting it to people is the other thing. You have to, if I were president, I would be taking over the media. I would be pissed, basically, and I would be using the military to commandeer the mainstream media, and I would make sure that the truth was getting out rather than this constant stream of propaganda, which is all we're getting from television and news, and even now they're censoring the internet. So, there has to be some sort of proactive measure to get the truth out, and I don't sleep when it comes to that kind of stuff. And
are you familiar with the Zeitgeist by I think it's Peter Joseph? He puts all that into perspective pretty good. Zeitgeist.
Nope.
Zeitgeist.
No, I don't really waste my time with books, honestly. I think there's
It's not a book. It's a YouTube. No, it's a YouTube.
What is it?
It traces everything, the media, the government, the military, all the way back to the Rothschilds, the families that own everything on the planet.
Right. Well, people my age and younger, we all know that at this point. But the thing is, getting older generation to kind of wake up and stop beating us up because we know better. You know what I mean?
Well, tell us then. Since you know it.
That's a big part of the problem.
So who's in charge
of the entire planet?
Who's running this planet? Who's running the world?
Well, I mean, if you're biblical, it's Satan. You know what I mean? That's what I think, and to me, that's fairly obvious. But you can try to put it in a more palatable way, but it's pretty obvious that the Bible is right on.
Who's Satan? Is that a human? Is that an extraterrestrial? We need to get more details on who are these people.
Who is Satan?
Because it's just so easy
Who is Satan?
Yeah, is he an extraterrestrial? Is he humanoid? Is he reptilian? Is he archon?
He's a very powerful spirit being who has, power over, ultimately, and control over the systems that we see in place on this planet. And really what we need to be doing is replacing those systems with other things, and rather than perpetuating the systems, because that's the only way we're actually going to solve our problems. You can't solve a problem through a system that doesn't work. You need to replace the system. You know what I mean? So ultimately,
let's look at that, because I've been looking at that as well, and that's why I'm studying the presidential election. And I think that, in my personal opinion, and I'll go out on my limb, I think that Trump's horrible. I think he's a buffoon, and I think he has Alzheimer's, and I hope that his wife takes him off the stage before he really embarrasses himself. But some people think he's doing great, and I don't think so. So we can differ there, and I'm not going to get into a big fight. But I'm looking at policy, so I'm paying attention, and I think it's time that, so if you're going to be president, you can start now and put your policies out there, because people are tired of the name calling. It's just like a bunch of 5-year-olds, like, oh, you're this or you're that. Who cares? We want to talk about what are the solutions. What are you going to do to solve the problem? So let's talk on that line, because that's what interests me. That turns me on. Like, what can we do about this?
The concept.
So, yeah.
Well,
Michael Macintosh,
I don't.
when you're president, what would you do about we can talk about the
planet,
resources. The planet.
Getting rid of the people with all the money.
Program.
How are you going to run it above the stock market people that own the money?
Yeah.
No money.
Convince
well,
us
I think
to vote for you. What would you do? Go ahead,
look, I think what we're going to see. I think what we're going to see before 2024 is a replacement of the financial systems anyway, and a complete collapse, because we have cryptocurrencies. They're taking over slowly but surely, and the dollar is going to become worthless. The euro is going to crash. The pound is going to become worthless. They're going to be throwing gold and silver in the streets because it's not worth anything anymore. And we're going to have to find new ways of doing things, and therefore create new systems, because these old ones clearly don't work. We have to, create systems that actually work for the majority of people, not ones that control the majority of people.
We all know the problem.
What system would you do? Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to be one system. I think if we replace a single system that oppresses most people with another single system, that inevitably will become corrupted and used to control everybody as well. So it's not really, it doesn't help to replace something with something else that's the same. It's just, you have to try new things. And I think it's going to be.
Grid goes down. We know all the power is going to go down because we can't supply it. By 2024, we've got over 8 billion people on the planet. So 2024 is an important year. So the grid's gone down. We have no power. We have no connection. We have no way to talk to you. And it's going to depend on where the person is. And some are going to be underground and some are going to be above ground. So there's a race to create another planet. Yeah. So we all know that.
They're going to be underwater.
So no grid.
So, Michael, as president, you're going to have to come up with some solutions.
There is no president.
Now's a good time to start thinking about solutions, like what can be done.
Yeah.
And I know lots can happen from now and then, but
I've already laid out a bunch of ideas, but I have a YouTube channel in which I've already laid out quite a few ideas about solutions to problems, and I'm talking very big problems, not just the financial system, but bigger problems than that. The financial system is.
There won't be.
Can you tell us? Yeah, can you tell us now? You're live. You're on the hot seat. Give us 5 solutions to different.
Well,
problems
I think one of the biggest problems that we have is education, or lack thereof, really, and ignorance. So what we really need to do is not just promote learning and education, but we need to dismantle things that are obstacles to that, like things that we call organized religion, for instance. We need to literally dismantle that.
All that's going to be gone in 2024.
Yeah, but let him address this. We're going to go in the future. So go ahead.
Well,
what would you do about organized religion? Because it basically has the whole world controlled and split up against each other. So tell us your ideas, Michael. Take it away.
Well, I think that we need to use the power of the United States military and the power of the United States government in the United Nations to remove these institutions from the face of the earth. And that will be removing a gigantic obstacle to people's natural, spiritual, intellectual, emotional, and other types of growth and progress. We need to literally just remove them. We need to shut down the Vatican.
How do you remove them? They're big. They're like coast to coast. So you go in and arrest them. It's around the world. There's 1 billion, and I can get the numbers. There's 1.5 billion people that identify as Catholic, and da 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 da. So.
Well, there are 1 billion people who are identified as Catholic. Well, there are 1 billion people who are identified as Catholic. That doesn't mean they are. They've been forced to accept that label, and it's the same with Islam. They've been forced to accept that label. out of fear, coercion, intimidation, threat, social exclusion, etc., etc. So if we remove those institutions that intimidate and threaten these people, these are just human beings, right, who have been forced to accept a system that oppresses them, or for fear of losing their lives many times. So if we help these people by simply using our military to remove these institutions and systems that hold them back and hurt them, they will naturally abandon them more than likely and find alternatives.
What we're up against right now? We've got this.
The
military's Christian.
And the electronics down. Everything's down. You got to think in the future. Everything doesn't work the way it does now. It's all gone.
Yeah. Well, and I think I'm the guy to do that, frankly, because I am a military strategist. I was a military advisor to the Obama administration for 7 or 8 years. When I advised him and he applied what I advised, he was very successful in his military campaigns. I was early on a military advisor to the Trump administration. He's completely ignoring me at this point, but I was, a White House military advisor. And that's part of how I think I came in contact with Andy, because he noticed that about me and wanted to talk about it, I guess. But I couldn't remember my early experiences, and he did help me to remember those as well. But yeah, that is ultimately, I can say with certainty that is what we are going to do. And I don't know if it's going to be Trump to do it. I don't think he will. I know that if I get elected in 2024, I'm going to do that.
The religious right. So he's not going to eliminate his base. That's who gets him elected. So that's what I can't quite wrap my head around, how you're going to do this unless Trump's out of the picture.
Well, I don't think it's going to matter, and I don't think that most Americans and indeed most people on this planet who are my age or younger are at all interested in what has been called organized religion. I call it pseudo-religion because it's not religion. They're cults, frankly. They've been, for instance, in the United States, they've been slipped in under the premise of freedom of religion when they're not really religions to begin with. Like you really can't honestly say that Islam is a religion. It's an ideology, and its purpose is to replace anything that gets in its way, and that's just one. Catholicism seeks to establish the Pope as an authority wherever it happens to get its tentacles into, and undermine the social order of things. You see recently with the Pope funding people who are trying to enter the United States illegally. He's all for that. He's all supportive of that, and indeed giving those people money. So this is an act of war against the United States of America, whether we want to call it that or not, but that's literally what it is. So
what about the scenario that you went on Apex TV, and they said that in 2028, time travel will become common knowledge and the extraterrestrials will reveal themselves. Is that part of your timeline that you're representing?
Yeah, I believe that I would be the person to do that also, to publicly disclose time travel and make it publicly available, and to either disclose or give undeniable, irrefutable evidence of the existence of extraterrestrials to the general public. This has been something that many presidents in the past have wanted to do, but were prevented from doing. I'm not the type of person that is going to let anything get in my way. And I can promise you that.
So you haven't heard?
They said that they actually show up and they walk among us. Is that part of your timeline that they're going to be walking among us at that point, like sitting down
I believe maybe
with us?
It's certainly possible. They do come and visit me on occasion, so whether I want them to or not. For some reason, they seem to like me. You know what I mean? So they've kind of like picked me for certain things.
Group. Like I work with Planet too. Which group do you work with? I work with the Allied Command and the Galactic Relations.
Yeah, and they're very peaceful. And the problem they have with making themselves known to us is the fact that we aren't peaceful. We're constantly fighting with each other about stupid things like so-called religion, nationalism. I mean, we can't even get Congress to agree on basic, decent things for the people of the United States of America. It's like we should be able to do that. You know what I mean?
Which do you work with?
We're not. I'm sorry?
Which group do you work with?
You're breaking up, Gigi.
Yeah. I said, which group do you work with? Which group?
They don't really have they don't really have a name for themselves. But we give them, and certain groups of people give them different names, but they don't actually have a name for themselves. They're just them.
Well, do they look like grays, or do they look like mantids, or do they look? Janet and I work with alien contactees, and we try to hear the different types with the various groups off planet. And I was just wondering which group. If you're seeing them and they're visiting you, what do they look like?
Right. Well, they look like the classic, beings that are depicted in the Roswell incident, like the famous depictions of Roswell, or say like Whitley Strieber's Communion book or movie. If you guys have seen that, it's a very famous movie book.
Yes.
They look like that.
Grays? We call them various levels of grays.
Yeah. Well, they don't look gray to me. They look kind of luminescent, but
that's what I was wondering. Tall, short. Yeah. Just describe them.
They're different heights, different heights. And they look sort of like luminescent to me, like they glow, like there's like light that emanates from them, like sort of angelic. If you were to, like, I would imagine if someone 2,000 years ago saw them, they would have thought of them as angels, perhaps. So I tend to think that maybe that's actually what they are, is, like biblical depictions of angels. It's just these beings who are in and out of humans, the human experience.
Do you take their influence or guidance?
They mostly work for me, actually. That, like, I can ask them to do things for me and they'll do it. It's kind of strange. I have a strange relationship with them.
What do they want you to do for them? Like, so are they guiding you to be present? Since you're saying you're reluctant to be present, you only want to do it one term. So what is the reason behind them wanting you?
Because they appreciate the fact that I'm completely an honest person, and I wish nothing but good things for the future of humanity. And I know how to make things happen. It's just really that simple.
See, one of the things that I got is that the religions will dissolve because the extraterrestrial presence will offer an explanation to our mysteries of, who were these beings that visited us, the Jesus and Mohammeds and Buddhists and, the Brahmanas, and because the ancient aliens, the ancient ETs have been with us all along. And from my perspective, I'm a researcher of the Anunnaki information. My husband's an anthropologist. Right, and on the highest level, we are they, so we're all part of the oneness. But on the sub-parsings level of the human 3D level, we've separated into self and apparent other. we identify as being in a certain place and time in a certain avatar. So I'm Janet, the human avatar that's female and 65 years old, and you're Michael, and you're in a human avatar, and we put different labels on it. So I was born here, I'm an American, I'm female, blah blah blah. But on the ultimate level, we are all one. But the ETs have a different, grander perspective of our history. They know
right.
a different history than what we are being taught through our media and through our educational program. So that's
right. Well,
they
can see all.
It could come down. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, you're right. They have the ability to see sort of every, like, all time at the same time. They don't really exist in time. It's more like they punch in and out of it, if that makes any sense.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it does.
And I gained that. Yeah, I gained that perspective as well from the time I was 5, I guess. But it really made sense a lot later.
Can you remote view the future to get the gap? So how you go from right now you're I don't know what you do for a living. You're a musician or something, I gathered, and you have a wife and 2 children.
Right. I do a lot of different things. That's music is just kind of a more or less a hobby that I treat like a business, and I've it is you kind of have to treat it as a business if you're going to do it. That's just the way it is. But like, I do other things.
What? Your YouTube, maybe you can send people to YouTube. That way, so we don't know how to find you. Which name are you going to use and which YouTube, at least as long as it's up till we lose the grid, and then we're all going to be stuck on whatever piece of land we're on, and we're going to be looking for water and know how to do food. So food, clothing, shelter, warmth, and love is about all there's going to be. We're not going to have a grid, so we're sure not going to have a president, because we can't even talk to each other. So it's going to be up to the individual families to take care of themselves. That's why Mother Nature takes care of us.
Let's not go there, TJ. You're scaring me. I want to stay on this timeline for as long as I can. I don't want to go into
that's
the
why I'm asking for YouTube. At least we can pretend
we'll talk about that in another show. Right now we're on this
YouTube.
timeline. And I just want to go to your YouTube. Okay, so what is it, Michael Macintosh?
Well,
is that your YouTube?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube, Michael Macintosh 2024. You can find me pretty easily. I'm not hard to find, and it'll get easier to find me.
I'm going to look for
I can understand that.
We're talking.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I'm just hearing and listening to the view of another timeline and how that could happen, and I agree that it is possible to change timelines. However, it is also possible that certain things are predestined and foreordained, and there's nothing you can do to change them. And I know that's maybe a different belief to what you have, but this is indeed the truth. Like, for instance, if you look, I don't know how much of the Bible you've ever read, but if you look in there are people that were foretold as having a certain role in the outworking of certain events. Like, for instance, Cyrus. Are you familiar with Cyrus in the Bible? He was foretold as the man who would sack Babylon 200 years before he was even born. And he didn't know that he was going to do that until someone showed him in the scriptures that it had already been written that he would do these things. So there are, and that's just one instance, there are certain things that are unchangeable. And I do believe that who ends up being in the office of President of the United States, which is a very important job in terms of how the world is shaped and the outworking of what I believe to be God's purpose for humanity. That person is, I believe, put there by God Himself. And I'm just saying, I think that's how that's going to happen. And that's how.
Well, I think the beings that are these beings, these extraterrestrials or whoever they are, these beings in existence, they have total control over the timelines. I mean, I've been shown my role as a Time Lord, and so they can make whatever they want to happen, because they can go back and forth, and if it doesn't turn out the way they like, they just reset it, and they keep going until it's the outcome that they want. So we see a lot of manipulation on our timeline.
Well, free will is certainly a factor, and as I said, like, certain things are changeable, but some things are probably not, especially if that's what God Himself has already decided.
But who's God? Who's God? What's God? See, everybody has a different perspective of God. I mean, I think that God is source, and that these are little gods that came down and screwed around with humanity, and they were playing like they're the Lord of all creation, but they're just a mini God and little God with little g, and they did a lot of screwing around with our timelines and manipulating things until they got what they wanted, and that's the people that are running the planet that you want to overthrow. They've been called God.
Well, these are
God.
These are lesser gods. Yeah, but these are lesser gods than the supreme God that I'm talking about, which is the God of the Bible, which the Hebrews call Yahweh.
The God in the Bible was a bunch of little gods. There's Source, which is universal consciousness and oneness, which is way above this matrix, which is just a virtual reality game. We're in a game because for my research, and my husband and I do nothing but study this stuff, is that whoever won the battle was God, and whoever lost the battle was Satan. And Satan just means adversary, and that's what kept going all through time. There was Yahweh, there was Adonai, there was Enki, there was Enlil, there was Marduk, there was Thoth, there was Nigashita, there was all these gods, and so God was just a title. In our ancient Sumerian historical reference, that was a title. So okay, you get to be God now. But they said that there's a creator of all. So they even knew, this is our Bible, and all these stories are the backbone of our Bible. But they, at the flood, they had a revelation. They go, what's going on? All these humans are still alive. We wanted them dead. So they got saved through divine intervention by the creator of all, which is above the matrix and outside of this virtual reality game that we're in. But anyway, that's my research. I don't want to call it belief. That's my research, and I can back it up.
A being who has always existed. I mean, the being who has always existed from. It's hard to comprehend someone who has always existed, but I believe that there is an all-powerful being who wasn't created and has always existed, and that is the God that I'm talking about, the capital G.
Okay. So
yeah.
Let's call it Source to differentiate between the little gods. So Source. Or they called the creator of all. The creator of all, Source, universal consciousness, oneness.
Now, if he foretold certain things would happen in what we call the Bible, can we logically conclude that if he foretold certain things for our future to come, that those things are probably going to come true also?
Those are just time travelers. The Bible's full of time travelers that were just manipulating things for their outcome. And so,
but if it's
they can make anything come true.
But if it's always been accurate, then can we assume that it's going to continue to be accurate in the future?
No, because you're getting into different timelines. If you go down to one variable, if you're in a different timeline, you're never going to know it was anything else, but you're just going to have your timeline. But I was taken outside of the game, and I was shown 24 potentiality that simultaneously exists. So in one timeline, Hitler never stepped out. In another timeline, Kennedy wasn't shot. And so they showed all the variables which caused the splits, but they all still exist. So we're the observer participant going down the timelines, and through free will, we can choose where we want to go. And this is so hard to explain in human English because it's more than that. But TJ, you're aware of this as well. Go ahead. You can speak on this. Yeah.
It's because I've been a time traveler and I study quantum physics, but I've also out-of-body experiences, and I've died 3 times in this lifetime. So each person evolves on their own soul level and their own planes. But this, Jamie, I think you're comparing apples and oranges with Macintosh apples. we can't talk on the same plane because he's obviously in the United States, and his platform on YouTube is strictly built around running for president in a year 2024, meaning he's already set his agenda. So his agenda is to be president in 2024. So that's his focus. That's his agenda. So talking about time travel with quantum physics, he's first got to understand that he's somewhere else, not just here at the same time. And the Bible can only exist here on the 3D level. And remember, Mother Nature takes care of everything. They can't even find a piece of the oldest part of Earth because it's all been taken under with volcanic eruption and the plates. So everything is renewed on this planet, just like Mars got hit billions of years ago, and the Kuiper belts formed from another planet that hit. We already know this. This is common sense that the planet we're on got hit by another planet. This is proven scientifically. And the Bible only started after the deluge and after they put certain pieces together, thanks to Constantine. However, they didn't put all the pieces together. So that's why we have, and I've seen these because they were on tour. So, the oldest text in the world are still out there. So we're still trying to piece together things that people have left that would be considered the Bible, which was made by Gutenberg Press in Germany. And that's surrounded by, these days, a big bar that comes down in a museum. So, you have to know what you're talking about. But most people are only programmed in America with King James Version, which came from Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. And those were only from a certain amount of scriptures that were fire clay tablet or kept maybe in the Qumran area. But you understand. So he's only basing his knowledge on what he knows now in this 3D world.
Right.
He's not comparing quantum physics. And one thing about I have to say.
Well, you don't know me, so don't assume what I know or don't know. So. You don't know me, so I would advise you not to assume what I know or don't know.
Well,
yeah, it's not logical to base your assumption on a person you only just heard about from a YouTube channel.
Okay, so let's
go
I
don't
back
know
to.
You. I don't know you either, so I'm not going to assume anything about you. But I would just advise you to not assume things about people in general because that's.
Well, I'm assuming
unwise.
you're running for president because of the YouTube stance, and that your name is Michael Macintosh. And his hair, he wears his hair like that other guy you were talking to me about.
Yeah, so let's not go into that. We're going to keep positive here. Keep positive. We're just looking at everything. We're looking at everything.
I'm positive.
Okay,
time travel is a good subject, but let's get back on it because you asked me, and that involves quantum physics. Is all I'm saying. It doesn't involve.
I'm not really even
back
saying that I'm running for president.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead. Tell us your perspective. We're listening.
Who? Me? I'm not even saying that I'm running for president. I'm just saying that I'm going to be president in 2024, whether you like it or not.
So something happens that you're president. What I wanted to know, can you remote view and fill in the gaps? What happens So Trump gets
Before
in your timeline. Trump gets reelected, right? Are you still on that timeline? That's what you said before in another YouTube.
Well, it's probably going to happen because what's the alternative?
Well, I think I think anything's better than Trump, but you don't want my opinion. So we're just looking at timeline.
I can say that too.
Okay.
I'm going to run for president.
Yeah.
I could say I'm going to be president. I am going to be president in 2024.
Can I ask a question?
I will be president. I will be president.
Oh, yeah, Mad. Let Mad ask a question. I didn't know you were back. Hi, Thomas. Please help us, rescue us. We've gone down into a dark hole. Save us.
Well, I might take it even a little darker because you said earlier that you think it has to do with spirituality and the devil and God. Well, who controls? You said the devil or Satan controls the earth. Who controls where the ETs come from?
Well, Satan controls the systems on the earth, especially the political systems, ultimately. So what we need to do is replace those. But the ETs aren't, I mean, they're free agents. They're free will. They have free will. So they're not controlled necessarily in the way that people are controlled by the systems in place on this earth. And ultimately, we as humans are not really controlled by these systems that we have that are in place on this earth. We are free agents. We just have to wake up en masse to that fact that we have free will. We can choose to subject ourselves to these systems, or we can choose to create an entirely new system that benefits us. That is what I believe we need to focus on, and not focus on the fear and, the control and oppression that's perpetuated on every man, woman, and child on this planet by the systems that are in place. We just need to ignore them, and we need to replace them. It's going to be gradual, obviously, because it's going to be hard to just ignore them all the time, but that's really what we need to start doing if we're going to live without them. And if there's enough of us,
what kind of governance system would system would we replace? Are we going to replace democracy? Are we going to have communism? We're going to have socialism? We're going to have capitalism? What system, or is it something completely different? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think, obviously the solution is not to be rigid or dogmatic about anything. We need to not, that's part of the problem is, dogma and dogmatic thinking about how everybody should do this, that, or the other. It's just not realistic. And that's part of what causes, people to, it causes animosity at the very least between different people, that everybody is forced to do a certain thing one way and one way only, right? Democracy.
Well, there has to be some guidance and rules, or else we're all going to crash into each other when we're driving down the road. I mean, we have.
Sure. That's why we have the Bible. The Bible stands for basic instruction before leaving Earth, and that was left by whom the various people that we start.
How do we keep the lights on? How do we have a distribution system? How do we get food across the planet? How do we feed it? And how do we keep roads or whatever transport is? How do we do this unless we have some kind of systems?
Think about it. We've already
that's your timeline. I'm not going down that timeline. Because I don't think apocalypso. I'm not doing apocalypso. I don't think it's necessary, because what I was shown from my extraterrestrial, that is a choice. If you go down apocalypso, that's because you want to experience a horrible death or experience famine and starvation and disease and mass destruction. That's just one of the possibilities. But there's also utopian outcomes, and so I'm I'm correcting course and changing and modifying and going to a positive timeline because I've done that before. I remember dying in Canada. I remember drowning. I remember all that shit. We've done it 100 times over on this planet, and we keep coming back, and it's kind of disgusting.
We don't learn our lessons.
Oh,
That's
shit.
why we believe in reincarnation. Because we keep
I'm
coming
learning
back.
now. I'm learning now, and I know as a soul, going down these timelines, that there's some way that I can go from victim to being the chooser, to having free will. And it's not free will to every, couple, 500 years or 50, whatever, you get killed by somebody. That's not free will. That's a slave in this virtual reality game. And I'm rising above this slave shit, and I'm calling game over.
I think
it's possible
the other planet.
Here.
We're using resources.
Every night I go to class, and I'm learning how to do this. Every night I'm 65 years old, and I am going to these things, and I come back, and I go, holy shit, and I'm getting these revelations. And I know I'm not the only one. I interview a lot of these experiencers.
No, that's why we're teaching. That's why the extraterrestrials are teaching people how to source and how to terraform and how to take care based on resources. That's why we're doing this changeover. 2024 is supposed to be, we've got our other planets set up. So there's going to be those leaving the planet.
The Earth, though. I think I don't want to abandon my poor Gaia because she's my friend. She's a living, conscious, sentient being, and she's asking for assistance. So
leave the container behind. She's taking care of herself.
I'm more than the
She's
container.
been taking care of herself for billions of years. That's why we have the volcanic eruption.
I'm in a game to find win for all, and win for all is not dying in some kind of thing where I starve to death or get blown up or the volcano gets me or the H-bomb, the nuclear fire. That is not the win for all. And so it is a virtual reality game. We're all making this up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
back to Michael or Mad.
Michael,
you two, Michael or Mad.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, we're crazy people on this show. What can we say?
Time travel. Time travel's good, though, Jan. It's a good subject. And Michael is a we thought he was a time traveler. Michael, you're a time traveler, right? Because we are. Ahmad is, too.
Well,
he's got a great book out.
I've done a lot of things. I don't know if that means I am something, though. I brush my teeth, but I'm not a dentist. You know what I'm saying?
You have traveled in time. Is that what you're saying?
I have, yeah. I have.
Okay. And I have two. And you have two, TJ, right? And Thomas, you have as well?
I'm only half here 50% of the time. I stay traveling.
You guys have literally physically traveled to the past, present, or to the past or future.
Of course. I'm 67 years old.
Okay. But through means of advanced technology or something to that effect?
Yeah, something to that effect. Like you said, you don't know me.
Well, that's why I'm asking. I'm asking questions.
Yeah, he's asking.
I'm not assuming.
Yeah. How have you traveled? Have you used technology, TJ?
I've done all of that. I've done out of body. I've done near-death experiences. I've done by location. I've been on ships. I've worked underground. I've worked for the government. I've worked in uniform. I've worked out of uniform. I told him who I worked for. That's why I was asking. Allied Council, Intergalactic Relations. That's one of the ways I've traveled. It's on this planet. It's off this planet. And I work very closely with beings that are called extraterrestrials. In God. God is.
And Thomas Becker, what have you done? TJ said you were a time traveler. Did you time travel?
Well, I don't know about time travel, but I believe time's just a tool for this particular reality that we're in. And I personally travel other places when I dream, so I don't think it has anything to do with this timeline. So,
right.
In that sense, and we're traveling through space, so We all
we're all
travelers.
time travelers. We're going through space, spinning around on a little bitty planet. Like, come on, guys, we're all travelers. And time
but
is
what we're
linear.
talking about is a different thing, and I really recommend Apex TV. Just watch one episode every night. It's kind of fun, and wrap your head around it. Yeah, wrap your head around it.
The Al Bielek story.
Yeah, wrap your head around it. So we're talking about that level of time travel, like the chronovisor, like sexting in the jump room, like Montauk chair, that type of,
I've done all
and remote
that.
viewing, like Project. Right, but I'm just saying that's the subject today. We're looking at what are the different modalities of time travel? Yeah, let's talk about Michael. From your perspective? How can one time travel? You used remote viewing that was taught to you by extraterrestrials. Did I have that correct? Am I getting that correct, or please correct me if I had that wrong?
Are you asking me?
Yes, Michael. Your name's Michael, right? Yeah, I said Michael, right? Michael.
Well,
so
remote,
you only use that one technique, or do you? Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Well, remote viewing is just a natural ability that I have. The time travel was because of literally being taken on a craft that is a time spacecraft, and being taken all over the universe and time on board this craft. The very same type of craft that people call UFOs, the beings that people call gray aliens or whatever you want to call them. And our government, I believe, has captured some of these ones that crashed, and has access to this technology also, whether it's, like that, you figured out how to use that technology or altered it or derived other technologies from it. I don't really know. I don't have access to that information, but I do know that our government has these craft and that needs to be made public. The existence of extraterrestrials needs to be made public, and the gigantic cover-up of the ETs that's been going on since the 1940s needs to be stopped, needs to end, and there needs to be official disclosure of the fact that the government has been in contact with extraterrestrial biological entities for 60, 70 years. And the technology that they acquired needs to be made for public use, because it will ultimately benefit all of humanity. And there's no reason it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be allowed. There's no reason it shouldn't happen. It's perfectly safe to do that. It's, there aren't really any, especially if we sort of make some regulations beforehand as to how it's going to be used, assign people to kind of supervise the program so that any potential screw ups are minimized. I don't see why that technology couldn't be made public, and indeed that single technology will change everything about life on this planet for human beings. And that to me is just an amazing thought. We can create a much better world, a much better future. If we have time travel, we can access then every other technology that's ever existed or will exist in the future. And that idea to me is just astounding. We could travel forward, use technology that will be developed in the future that maybe could extend our lives, clean up the environment, all kinds of things. And we know there's ancient technology that has been forgotten about. We could go back and acquire that, bring it to the future, and just create a better world, That's where I'm coming from.
Well, see, that's what they say on Apex TV. they said that what happened was time travel opened up in 2028, and it became a tourist industry. You could go into the future, and they in the future were there to receive us, and they would take us, around, and they welcomed us, and they helped us integrate, and that is a key thing that changed it. Now, you weren't allowed to do things that would change the timeline if you were going back, so everybody was trained, and apparently it was monitored, or somebody, there could be accidents, and it was all monitored and corrected and fixed so it maintained the integrity of the timeline. And we shifted, and we started having things like floating cities. We worked and resolved all these issues. Apparently, LA goes underwater, but they domed it so people could still live there. And a lot of it's fascinating. I don't know if it's all just made up, or sometimes it just seems like somebody knows something. And then you were on that. That's how I discovered you, Michael, was on Apex TV. I don't know if your episode is still there or not, because there's so many that have come after you. It's still there, yeah.
There is.
So
there is, and it's interesting. One of the early videos that they put out was one of the very first videos they put out was a guy named Michael Phillips, who said that a man named Michael Macintosh would be president in the mid 2020s and would run against Oprah Winfrey. And so. And I had already before.
So you are going to run for president. You're not just going to be put in. You're going to run against Oprah.
Well, of course, it's going to be done the traditional way that we've always done it. I presume. I mean, that would make sense, right?
Right.
But
we don't know. It's
that,
the future.
Not on my timeline.
Not in your timeline.
I'm just a time traveler. 2024 is pretty damn important, but it's not. Everybody's individual thoughts are not combined to make what we think is reality right now. It's a little different. That's why we're working on.
Who's the president in your timeline?
There is no president.
Who's the president?
There's
no president.
No
so
president.
Tell us what you see. So there's no president
I'm working
in 2024.
the same
What
place.
happens?
We're all working in a totally different reality because it's all based on resources, based on the planet that we terraform. And that's presently where we are now. We're basing it on the history that we know the people here that want to expand their consciousness. So right now, the only thing we're working on is finding out those that are level in what we call reincarnation to expand the expanse in the consciousness. So everybody will be used at the level that they understand in their source level, which means soul. So we're working with people now that understand how souls are put back into a container. That's why we've allowed so many people to be able to do what they do now with the type of animals and planets they have. We're working in the dream state, like Ahmad said. So most of the people that we work with are at various stages of reality. So that's why the word time travel is so important. That's why I was trained as a child, just like when I thought I saw Andy at 6 years old. He said that wasn't him in 1980. But I went to Montauk to work on this particular project called Project Pegasus, and I worked on Project Stargate in Hawaii. So all these people that work together, there's only so many thousand, and they cut off the quota. So that's what I'm interested in now, is finding the people that are working on various levels of their existence in their soul manifestation. So right now we're looking for conscious manifestors, because various people are in various stages of what we do call various projects. So right now we're working on a completely different planet that is similar to this one based on resources. So right now that's why we're getting away from the reality, Janet, that we're working on now. So by 2024, this reality is it depends on the people. So that's when you go back to there is no death, right? There's only reincarnation.
Thomas, do you have any questions, feedback, questions, or whatever? Are you still with us, Thomas?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah. Comments, questions, feedback?
You mentioned alternate currencies. You don't think Bitcoin is one of them currencies where they're trying to do away with the paper money so they can control the system better?
I've researched Bitcoin extensively, and I think it's going to do more to help humans move forward than the current mainstream forms of currency. I think it will definitely help. Personally.
To me, I think it's so they can watch everything you do. I only do I don't even have a bank account. I don't trust them that much.
Well, Bitcoin is totally anonymous. That's the great thing about it. There's no way anybody can track what you're doing with it, and that's one of the biggest reasons that people are going to switch over to this.
It's all right there and readable.
Yeah, but it's anonymous, so it's not tied to an individual.
There's too many coming up and coming, like Bitcoin now. Bitcoin's not holding in the stock market like it was because it has been traced. So now Bitcoin is just like any other. Everything can be hacked and tracked. So don't fool yourself.
I have to take a little break here, so carry on without me. I'll be right back. I'm sorry, I have to take a break. I'll be right back.
So, we don't even know where the blockchain technology come from. Do you think it's possible it came from the future?
Sure. A lot of things could have come from the future. Absolutely. I've indeed met my own children as adults. So in this time frame, just recently, I was visited by a person who was 23 or 4, who I later on came to conclude that was my 9-year-old daughter, who had come back from the future to meet me. It's absolutely possible that this technology was brought, and in fact, I participated in the doing of that to some extent with technology that existed back in 1975, 80, et cetera, et cetera. I'm in fact the person who brought it back there, some of it.
You know who Al Bielek is?
Yeah.
He says, in the future, we're all going to be controlled by AI city-states. Is that the way it's going to be?
Nothing is set in stone. Free will is free will. And as long as people are happy with something, then they're going to choose to do it. If they're not happy with it, they're going to choose not to do it. It's really pretty simple, right? Free will is ultimately what determines everything. And
well, now if you on all powerful source God, who's already laid out all of history, then you have no choice.
Well, it's interesting. That's you could debate about that for a long time, but I mean, if he's chosen you for something, why would you not go with it? You know what I mean? If you know that he's chosen you for something, why would you go against it? It's sort of like, I mean, you have the choice to go against it or not, but you're not going to be happy if you choose not to. So it's best to choose to go with it. You ultimately do have the free will, though. You understand what I mean? Does that make any sense? Or?
Well, kind of. I just see that it's indifferent. No matter what you do, it doesn't matter anyway. So then, you can go ahead and do whatever the hell you want.
Well, you can, but the point of life is to be happy. And if you're not happy, then you're making the wrong decisions ultimately.
No, I agree with that.
So there you go. It's really very simple.
Okay, TJ, go ahead.
I'm still working on soul level. No, I've been to all those other classes. I've been there, done that kind of stuff. But my travel, when I wound up dead, wound up in the same circle again, looking at going back and forth and forward, and I was like, oh no, I hate it. I hate being out there. So I decided, I'll just work with God. But God's got His plan for me, and so does Godmother, because I still go back to the old thing. You take your mother and father back, all the way back. You got to wind up somewhere, right? And that's what we believe in this reality. It's still 3-dimensional. So I'm trying to work on the 11+2 right now. I'm working on quasi crystals and how to get out of this timeline, because linear time doesn't matter. It only matters to us here, and that was the hardest thing for me to grasp working in uniform and out of the country, and then working off planet was, how do we do all this? But thanks to Project Pegasus and Project Stargate, at least it gave me some direction on a linear timeline. That's why I like working with time travelers. I love all that stuff, but it's just entertaining, But from what I've seen, if we don't do something the next year or two, we've been saying that with us cutting the trees down, that's what they told me. The ETs I worked with thought we were nuts down here cutting our trees when we were so close to 36% oxygen in '93 when we had the Eco Expo. But now we're at 37.
Well,
we can't go anywhere else because of oxygen. So that's why 2024. We're supposed to be completely with another planet, so that's what we're working on in space with the space
most
force.
of the oxygen comes from plankton, not trees. Believe it or not.
Well, the carbon dioxide we're putting off.
The oceans.
Yeah, the oceans are pretty bad. But it's not just trees. It's why did we cut the trees? Because we put off a lot more carbon dioxide, more than anything. But look at what we're doing with everything else. So, yes, we've done it. We're going to pay for it, regardless of where it comes from.
TJ,
it's the carbon dioxide.
What's your source of information about what's happening by 20? What'd you say, by 2024? What's your source of information?
2024. Why is it important? An important year?
Yeah. What is your source of information? Did you get a download, or you have contact, or how do you know that?
No, it's based on Space Force. It's based on what we've got planned on the linear timeline. It's 3D reality.
And this is something you learned when you were in the military, or is this part of what you were taught recently? Where did you get this information? Was this while you were in the military, or? Yeah,
no,
this information is 2024.
I take mostly what I learned from 3D reality, and I put it with what I do, what he calls like remote viewing, which when I was in the military, we used it. We used it for data usage, just like we did with the Montauk chair and chronovision, like Andy uses.
So you saw 2024 in a chronovistic type of technology, like a chronovisor type technology. You saw
we've always used
2024.
We've always used that. We just use people in the military to train back and forth. And some people, when I was a child, remember, I was taken, and then at 16. But at 16 was when I learned about the future with what I'm working with now in what we call resource planet management of the resources. So that's why we're working now with the Space Force, is because we have to have another planet. We know another planet hit Earth. So we're just redoing what we did the same way when I left Mars. But I left Mars billions of years ago. So my internal ops is what tells me that's what's going on. But no, I didn't learn this from the government. I learned this from the God. But, yeah, the reason the government used me in these programs was because I was chosen and came in, but twirling those machetes and knives and fire batons. And they saw I had something, and then I was using ESP already. So the ETs were using me in White Sands and, with the different races because I had the vision. But that's why I looked up Project Pegasus and discovered Andrew Bishago back when we first started, when I stayed up all night to get my name on Facebook. So I found Project Pegasus, and that's why I wear one on my leg. So I would remember how to do all of this and see everything at one time. So to me, time travelers have either already gone out of body near death, or they understand, like Ahmad says, dreaming, because most of the time in my dreams I'm not here. So the 2024 is very important in this reality in 3 dimension because it's the only place 2024 exists. It doesn't exist anywhere else. There's no such thing as a 2024. Only in our reality here that we put together.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at when I mentioned the dreams, because once I leave here in a dream, there's no longer a such thing as time. So,
Exactly.
Right. Speaking of time, we have about 15 minutes. So what do we want to cover in the last 15 minutes? Michael, what do you want to convey to our listeners
Just this simple thing. If I end up being president in 2024, the concept of freedom of religion is going to be drastically altered back to what the Constitution actually meant it to be, not what it's come to mean. And that will ultimately be very beneficial to humanity. I'm going to disclose time travel to the general public so we can all get the F out of Dodge if we want to. Make it public, disclose the extraterrestrial presence, and there's a few other things that I have in mind. But, I think you're right. We can create a more positive timeline, a more positive future, and that's ultimately what I'm trying to do as well. I don't want to have to do that through political means. I don't want to have to be president of the United States, but it seems that I'm really on track to making that happen by 2024. And I know the system ultimately is completely ineffective in solving all of our problems, but we can use certain aspects of it to really start kicking off what will be real and lasting solutions. And I just welcome anyone to be part of that as well. We're all just kind of here together, and we can work together to make these things happen rather than leave it up to just a handful of people. The more the merrier, you know what I mean? So join the party, guys.
Yeah.
You're all invited to the party.
I got a download recently that we're going to return to the Council of 12. We're going to get rid of the presidential branch, of the system, because that's too much power in one person's hand, right? I mean, they look at the declarations every day that come out. It's like there's nobody else getting to speak up about what to do. It's like all of a sudden there's all these people over there waiting for a battle, and it's all one person making those decisions. That's too big for one person to be making those decisions. So it goes back to the council.
Goes back to the Council of Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. And who owns
really
those?
need to
No, I'm talking about the original Council of 12. We used to have a Council of 12 in the Sumerian. It was 12 and 6 men and 6 women. They made all the decisions. It wasn't one guy. Right now we've had one guy for the most part, but okay.
But that's not true.
Who was trying to talk? Thomas, go ahead. Your turn.
I said with 12 people there'd be a tie.
Right, so they have to have consensus. They have to keep talking until they have consensus. So they have to work out the details. Why are you voting no? Why would you be voting no on this? And you keep talking about it until everybody goes, oh, okay, and they can all agree. It's easy to do with 12 people.
We made it dimensions, remember? Janet, remember the Anu? We made it dimensions. That you had that same argument at the council. So what we did is we made it 13. We took 9 plus 2, that was 11, and we gave it 2 more. And we kept it 13, which Ahmad is trying to remind you of.
I understand.
Well, it was just an odd number. An odd number keeps it from being a tie happening, And
right, but you're thinking of the old paradigm of voting, like voting is really right. No, there's consensus, and this is something that's taught in a lot of the groups through the 60s. The different communities, we have to have consensus. And so consensus means
we're not playing on this 3D level.
Well, this planet can move to consensus rather than it's the old paradigm of the one sacrificing the one for all, and that's the Jesus paradigm. Crawl up on a damn cross. We're going to go past that to a win for all. It's a real and viable concept that they use in extraterrestrial. Let me finish my sentence, then you can have the ball. We use this in extraterrestrial societies everywhere. It's called consensus. It's called the win for all. Now, the Jesus paradigm, climbing on the cross and the sacrificial lamb, that's old paradigm. That's a 3D Earth level part of the religions. And that's even in Star Trek. We're going to have one person sacrifice for many. That's a way of being, but it's an old paradigm. We're moving past that to consensus. And
we've always been past that. That's why we have the dimensions. Right. That's why time travel is taught. The reason is because we've already divided up the universes, and we've got them in quadrants, and we've got the universal levels, and we work in the 7 universes. And down here in this lovely little planet that's spinning around a Milky Way galaxy on the outside, it's a strategic location in this quadrant of the Milky Way and in the universe next to Andromeda. So when we got together, and you always do this, every time you come back, you want to argue about how we're doing this planet. But remember, we still decided we were going to have a hierarchy here. And that way we have the empirical study that science and among our peers can test and measure. So as long as we're in a 3D,
as long as you have hierarchy, you go back to this timeline of destruction. It's a cycle within a cycle within a cycle.
We're measuring
and we've learned that hierarchy sucks and it never works. Hierarchy never works ultimately. So we're looking at consensus, and there's other places that are working in consensus, and that's part of the where we are in the yugas, in the Kali yugas. We've come full circle. We see other operating systems. We're shifting. We're not even going to use Mac or DOS. We've gone to a different operating system.
We're in Australia.
We can do all of creation with a different paradigm. Anyway, that's what I'm learning. But let's go back to this conversation because most people don't get what we're saying. It's 3:50 for me, so it's 10 minutes before the hour.
Time travel is important. I believe it's a good task. I believe it's a good word. I believe that Andy has a place, that Michael has a place, the Mad does, you do, and I do. And right now, you keep referring back, but you might want to study one of the guys holding one of the keys, because we're all key holders. No one person on this line is any more important than the other. So we've just got to figure out who's at what level with their consciousness. And if they're playing in this 3D arena with 2024, they're stuck in 3D. That's all you have to know, because it's only here. It's like Ahmad says. When he dreams, he's bilocating or doing lucid dreams or whatever, time traveling maybe. But we only use time travel in 2024 on 3D linear timeline. But we're past that now. Multidimensionals are talking at the 5D to 11, and we're already using 5G for that purpose. So it's all related. It's all subjective to the individual personality, holding on to the container that's holding on to the consciousness. And what holds us together? Right now it's called
our
quantum
consciousness.
physics.
Otherwise we go, if we don't have our focus on it, we just become stardust. Our consciousness, what holds us into our bodies. So back to Michael. Let's have him wrap things up because we're running out of time. Go ahead, Michael.
I don't really have much to add other than this has been a very fascinating last hour and a half or so, and I'm certainly I'm learning, and I hope that I continue to learn, and I don't think anyone can truly say that they know everything about anything ultimately, but what we do know, we are obligated to share with others, and I would just encourage, all of you guys to keep speaking, keep talking. Don't feel like you're crazy, because I know I'm learning by listening to all of you, and I hope I've helped in some regard in that way also.
Mike, you've done a great job.
It sure works a lot better if you know what you're doing in this reality, what your purpose is. I mean, life flows so much easier when you figure out what you're here for. I think we all have a purpose. And when you do figure it out, I mean, everything just falls into place for you.
So here we are.
Final words? Yeah, we're going to be closing the show. What's your final words, TJ? We're going to end with Plan of the Peace. We're going to create this Plan of the Peace, but go ahead.
keep learning, because we're all here for a reason. And if it's not to level up in a consciousness game, what's left? You know, you have to take care of your soul. Your individual free will has to do with your own soul level, your consciousness level. And it's not death and dying. You don't die. Your body decays and you leave your container. End of story. Life is forever. Life is eternal. So keep working. This isn't all there is.
I agree. So we're going to call this a day, and thank you so much for joining us here at the Aquarian Radio. And we've had the pleasure of having Mike Macintosh, and I'm your host, Janet Carol Lesson, and we have Thomas Becker, also known as a Mad Painter, and Teresa J. Morris. And we were just planning, Michael and myself, and this is how it ended up, so it was all meant to be. So we will be doing this again next week, and I want to sign off with Planet of Peace by Jaiya Earthchild, my dear friend who's living in Australia right now. So hope you enjoy Planet of Peace. Aloha.
Shed the air since the dawn of time. No one takes a breath saying this one's mine. We share the sun, we share the heat. It's time to learn to share the land in peace. You who govern, choose to spend more on war than we can comprehend. We insist to share our wealth, food and water, homes and health, teachers, trees and medicines. Then the time of true peace can begin. We are all one human family, sharing one. Our home is a planet of peace, planet of peace, planet of peace. You of every nation are family to me. I feel such consternation that you suffer while I walk free. I will do all that I can to help unite this family of woman, child, and man. The leaders of our nation, are they wise as well as strong, or boys in imitation, pointing that he's God, threatening the future, endangering us all? The people